Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Thank you for being here. So I guess before we jump into the Matrix, I've asked this a few other episodes and kind of variations of it, but if you could have dinner with any actor, dead or alive, who would you go with?
I would go with Charlie Chaplin because of his magnum opus, The Great Dictator. He lampooned Hitler and Nazi Germany in 1940, prior to the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. And so the sentiment in the United States was not entirely anti-Nazi at that point. I mean, it hasn't ever been, really. But at the time, it was even more ambiguous. And although the movie was critically acclaimed and celebrated in Hollywood, over time, it kind of destroyed his career. Because in the 50s, we ended up dealing with Red Scare 2 and McCarthyism. And there's a great speech in The Great Dictator. It's often posted on YouTube and labeled as the greatest speech ever written or the greatest speech ever made. And that speech, amongst other things, was kind of used to paint Charlie Chaplin as a communist. And there was other stuff going on with his career, like there was a paternity scandal where he was accused of having a child with a younger woman, and it was later proven that it wasn't his kid, but he still had to pay child support. And so all these things sort of accumulated until he eventually self-exiled from the USA and the UK into Switzerland, if I remember correctly, and never set foot in America again. And that movie came to me, I want to say 2016, 2017, 2018, sometime around there, when my bubble of ignorance and privilege was being popped by the realization that everything was going to shit, and we were in a political firestorm. And I saw hints of that in like 2014 when I had Facebook friends like posting sincerely about the Earth being flat, and I was like, something is wrong. Something is happening to the world right now, and I'm concerned. Like, this isn't like you're not committed to a bit right now. And then by 2015 when Trump was announcing his candidacy, I was like, oh, okay. So I've just been living in batshit crazyville, and I had no idea. All right, good to know. Great. So that movie came to me around that time, and I found his story very interesting because I was sort of having a fallout in my own life for being outspoken in my politics, and it was affecting what I had known in a lot of different ways, and so yeah, I'd just love to sit down with Charlie Chaplin and discuss what that was like, what it was like to have tomatoes thrown at him in I think it was some theater in the UK that was screening the movie by people who saw
Jerks.
Germany as just a sovereign state just trying to defend itself from all its enemies, enemies all around it. Poor Germany.
Poor Germany.
No comparisons at all.
No relevance.
No, not at all.
In our current day.
No. This definitely isn't history repeating itself because we failed to learn. Not at all.
What about you, Sarah? What do you have off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, huh?
Well, I mean, you could have also prepared it. I'm not. You can go either way.
Me prepare things? Are you kidding? No. Kinda. This is gonna be an odd one. Jean Reno. He's had a real wide variety of roles, and also a lot of them are he had to be sort of a bad cop for whatever reason. But like he's done a lot of stuff. He's done like international cinema. He did a Japanese movie as a French person, and I want to pick his brain about all of that. I might have a crush on him.
Leon.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's also the lead role in a movie called Wasabi, which is really where the obsession took hold.
Oh, and I have to. And here's a hilarious fact. I don't know why I know this. I think I just was looking this up recently. He was in the movie Godzilla, the '98 version, which is terrible, the same year that he was in the movie Ronin, which is actually a pretty good movie. In the same year, those are like polar opposite movies. It's just
his career looks a lot like Bruce Willis's in that he'll just kind of do whatever he wants to. It seems like
pretty much, yeah. He was also in the Rollerball remake, which is absolutely abominable. From the early 2000s, he's been in a lot of like that's
the thing. He's not like he's not like a Tom Hanks where he's getting an Oscar for stepping out the front door. Yeah. But he has done a lot of roles, and I definitely want to talk to him about The Professional.
Yeah, no, that would be the good. It would be funny if I said Natalie Portman, who is in that movie as like she was like 12. That's not.
We could double date and make it real weird.
Yeah. Well, so I mean I think I was going to say, like, as like the kind of the cheating answer would have been like George Carlin, because he's been in, I think, like one movie, and he was on SNL, the first ever SNL. So like that's kind of like a cheating answer, but he was always like a huge influence on me as a, I don't know, like a teen, listening to him and just being like influenced by his, I don't know, I almost would say he's probably like the first exposure I had to like genuine distrust in the government. In a way, like at a time where like I don't think I understood what that actually meant. I wouldn't have said I was like a leftist. I would have said like I'm very liberal, probably what I was for a long time. So I don't know. It seemed like he actually knew what he was talking about, and he never missed. So that would be my
club, and you ain't in it.
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck about you. Those lines pretty much just live rent free in my head, and I'm okay with that. And then of course the one where he says, when fascism comes to America, it's not going to be in brown shirts and jack boots. It's going to be in Nike sneakers and smiley t-shirts. And he's absolutely right. That's such a scathing critique of late stage capitalism. He knew exactly what was happening.
He loved to rag on boomers, and so I feel like that's like it's like a call out of them, like very specifically, like they got everything they wanted, and now they're just complaining and ruining everything. Yeah.
Just a side note real quick. George Carlin has been in a lot of stuff. He played Rufus in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, fuck. I know. I mean, that's...
He also played Bart Trink in Jersey Girl, which I haven't seen. He was also Cardinal Glick in Dogma, which I have seen.
That's the one. That's my big one, I'd say. I forgot about Bill and Ted. Man, that's right. I haven't seen that in forever.
Yeah, he's like a legitimate actor, and we should definitely do that movie.
Oh, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes. And Bogus Journey.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you have to do them both. Didn't they just make a new one?
They did just make a third one. I haven't seen it yet.
I didn't see it. Yeah.
Was it? I was afraid to tear off that particular Band-Aid, but if it comes with a recommendation, I will give it a shot.
It was not terrible.
It was not terrible. That's the best I could hope for.
Yeah.
Funky and charming, and what can you expect?
Everything that the Chippendale reboot wasn't.
Yeah. But I guess moving to the movie, I mean, everyone listening, whether you were from that era of when it came out, but it was such that cultural phenomenon. I wonder if you have if you remember when you saw it originally, and like, do you think it had some kind of influence, or do you think it was because it was such a cultural phenomenon that it's almost like was impossible to avoid? I think of like Men in Black and this movie, and I don't know, like Jurassic Park is like 90s films that are just became phenomenons.
So the Matrix came out when I would want to say 12 years old. I didn't see it until I was 13. I think I saw it on television, and then very quickly bought the VHS and then eventually the DVD. I was immediately hooked, instantly obsessed, to the point that I memorized Morpheus' speech to Neo about what the Matrix is, and I performed it in my acting class with my friend Patrick Call, who is he's currently an aspiring actor. He's been in a couple things on streaming. But yeah, the whole speech, this is your world. It exists now only as a neural interactive simulation called the Matrix. I even had it. I did the whole thing.
That's a commitment to the bit.
That's a great monologue. I'm sure whoever you read it for was probably like, oh, kids and their new stuff. That's a legendary monologue.
No, everyone was actually very.
Really?
Okay, well, that's good. This is the cue where you'll now hear that. Okay, we're back. I'll add that in the afterwards.
What happened? I'm confused.
Like what? Yeah.
I was making a note to myself when I listen to it later to put that clip in.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah.
So everyone can hear that.
Around that time, I started making music as well, and I was just inserting terrible quality MP3s that I got off of whatever rudimentary search engine existed at the time, at Speeds or whatever the hell it was. Slapping those into my Fruity Loops project, flipping the output because I didn't know anything about dynamic range, and showing it to my classmates and teachers. My classmates were like, "This is crap," and I'm like, "Hey, fuck you! I'm gonna keep making music anyway." I did. Here I am.
Well, there you go.
Let's see. As far as impact, I might remember. Well, aside from the one thing which never fails to amuse me, of the 3 or 4 boys that I saw this with, none of us are cis anymore.
Well, I would say that's
you got effectively decolonized.
Yes, forcibly. I wouldn't say against my will, but certainly not without any help from me. But as far as, serious answer, like, this is about the time that, like, when the movie hit, like, black trench coats immediately started being worn by everybody.
Oh yeah.
And pulsing techno music became more popular than it already was, and like,
from Grand Marshal for a while.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's been a while since I've seen that movie. There was one other thing. Oh right. It altered action movies forever.
Yeah, for sure.
And like, they did it with this little budget and this little, like, it's not really that impressive until you put yourself in 1999 and you're like, oh, nobody's ever actually tried to show me what a bullet does to the wind.
Yeah. Bullet time has not been done before, at least that I can think of.
No, not at all.
The thing where they had all the cameras circling the actors and then stitching it all together and after the fact, and still using green screens and matching perspective with the environment. Like, that was revolutionary stuff.
Heck yeah. And it was hard to do when they did it.
Yeah, they did. I mean, the movie budget was $60 million, which you think now is like not that much, but in 1999, that's a big, it's not, probably now that's what, equivalent to $100 million, something like that. So not enough, movies now, those big budget sci-fi or, effects movies, they $200 million for like these movies from like 2007 from, that just look like shit now, but The Matrix still looks really good.
Yeah, it holds up, and it just keeps getting better with age, in my opinion. Like, I learn more things about it, and I notice more things about it all the time. Like the fact that Neo's or Thomas Anderson's information was he lived in Capital City, Capital City, in FU, USA. And coincidentally, this is purely coincidental, his ID expires on 9/11/01. This came out in '99, so that's a bizarre coincidence, especially for a movie like The Matrix. I'm sure the conspiracy theorists are having a field day with that one all the time. But it's still weird. It's still super weird.
It is so weird. Like, what were they referencing?
Well,
I just think today I don't have to. Maybe they did. Maybe it was completely intentional.
Well, here's a theory I have. So in the movie The Big Lebowski, the very opening scene when he's writing a check at the supermarket, it's not 2001, but it's also 9/11. Oh, okay. So I wonder if there's some, like, if that, like, looks good. I don't know. Like, it's like I'm not, like, in movies to know, like, if that's like a specific. Now you wouldn't use it because, of course, it's tainted. Yeah. But at the time, somehow it must have been like this. I don't know. That came out in '98, so
referential significance.
I guess so, yeah.
It doesn't strike me as, like, Wachowski style to have a detail like that and then not have some sort of supporting logic behind it,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I guess that's actually, like, not a bad segue. That, like, the movie itself, you think of course, movies are commodified. We pay to see them. We do all the things, all the stuff. That's nothing we can avoid that. But when you think of The Matrix, you think of it being an anti-capitalist message, and I think part of that idea is also that the Wachowski sort of have over time added to their, I guess what you would say, their commentary on the movie as far as like what it meant at the time and what it means now. And at the time, I think that they weren't really saying that it was that kind of movie. And now, you look at their interviews and it's very explicit what they were trying to cover. And so maybe it was because at the time, you couldn't speak out about those things?
Yeah, I think it could have either been they felt like they had to censor themselves to a certain degree because the topic of capitalism wasn't as widely and comfortably discussed as it is today, or they they could see what was wrong with society and understand the systemic problems, but they didn't have access to the level of information that we have now, where you could just, Google the definition of capitalism and just find everything you could possibly ever need to know about it. So maybe they could sense that we are a rampant consumer culture, and that we work these middling, meaningless, soul-sucking corporate jobs. Maybe they just noticed all those things, and then over time they began to understand the economic theory better, as many of us have. And now they're just explicitly like, oh yeah, no, it's anti-capitalist. Like, even if we didn't know that's what we were doing at the time, it's very evident at this point that that's what that is.
Well, and also Office Space came out the same year, so clearly it was like this idea that people were thinking about of just because I think
That's interesting.
Like,
I didn't know that.
like so 99. This is also like not far. Obviously, you said 9/11. It's a sort of a peak economy, and
Yeah.
for most people at the time, and so
Yeah, and a lot of historians and economists that they think that 1999 very well could have been the peak of Western civilization. I mean, we were certainly happier, and we were certainly more economically prosperous, and that is evident in all sorts of statistics. Over the past 20 years, hyper-individualism has become more prevalent, and in turn, isolationism and loneliness and depression and all these things have increased significantly. And I get really nostalgic. I mean, I did a whole song called "Drunk in 1999" talking about the blissful ignorance of the 90s. But I do also have to remind myself that we just didn't have access to the level of awareness and information that we do now with these little supercomputers in our office, where we can pull them out and we can film things like police brutality, and we have irrefutable evidence right there for the entire world to see instantaneously of the corruption. And it was there. It was just hidden a lot better and a lot easier. And every now and then it would surface, like, for instance, the Rodney King riots and things like that. But for the most part, it was more effectively swept under the rug. So we were happier, but we were also ignorant, and ignorance is bliss. And Cypher talks about that, so that's relevant.
Yes,
Are you
it
saying
is.
are you saying we were living in the Matrix? Is that what you were
We
saying?
sure were.
Yeah. And now we're all I guess, as the more conservatives would say, now you're red pilled, and so you're
Oh, I'm so mad they appropriated that.
yeah, that's it's
Andrew Tate is Cypher. He's Cypher at best, and he's an agent at worst. He's Cypher in the sense that he is hedonistic, encourages ignorance. He tells people not to read books. He's literally Cypher sitting in the restaurant eating the steak, saying, "I don't give a shit about anything as long as I can get mine." That's Cypher, and he's Agent Smith at worst. He's being charged with sex trafficking, and he's taking advantage of the attention economy to line his pockets. Like, he's a fucking he's perpetuating the Matrix. He has not escaped it.
That's right. Cypher's probably a call-out creator.
oh god. Yeah, I mean I don't know where I was going before. Oh yeah, so I was saying, like, I was joking that we're like in the 90s, you're like literally I mean, I guess it's actually what you're saying, Joe, is like the going from not having information about anything and then all of a sudden having that information. That's literally what enabled us, humans and people who are, I guess, now on the left, or even people who aren't but know what's going on. They know the game. It literally was able to wake us up from this. And it's a shame at the time it wasn't more explicit, because I think people who watched this at the time might have said, like, oh, wow, this is, I didn't realize this kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger and I saw it, it sort of made me, I mean, I've always kind of been anti-establishment, like, my entire life. I mean, just when you're kind of a weird neurodivergent kid who gets bullied a lot, you kind of hate the world from the get-go.
Same. Yeah. Yes. All of that.
Yeah, but then in 2001, when 9/11 happened, we went from a culture that was problematic to this hyper nationalistic, like rabid, extremely racist against Arabs. Like so pre that was not a bad time, at least in my experience. I mean, Columbine. So I grew up in Littleton, right down the street when Columbine happened.
Oh, wow.
So I got to experience the fallout of that, where then it was every weird quiet kid is the next Dylan Klebold, and we have to check their lockers and we have to suspend them, and it was like fucking McCarthyism for weird kids. It was McCarthyism for rejects, and I was right in the middle of that, so I got to experience that. Like I never stood a chance. I was never gonna like this kid.
Well, and it's almost ironic that like we're, other than the part of Columbine, but like obviously we still have mass shootings, but it's kind of the same thing. Now we're in like a different level of McCarthyism now, of people who are, heaven forbid, you might be against people being genocided. It's now you're being called out for being losing your job or all these things. It's not a there's always something.
Not wanting women and children to be summarily executed and thrown into mass graves is anti-Semitic because APAC says so.
Of course. Yeah. I got told today that fixating on the genocide was childish of me and I should look at the bigger picture. Like,
that's
what?
Right. That person can go fuck themselves.
They heard that and so many other things from me.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I don't play this shit. This is the easiest litmus test for morality ever. Like,
right?
Sure, like of course October 7th is a whole thing in and of itself. But like, if you can't tell yourself that children should not be shot in the head, you have lost the plot morally as a human being.
Right?
Like there should be no, in the 21st fucking century, when history is an open book, this should not even be a conversation.
Completely.
And yet here we are, getting mad on a podcast because we all catch the same shit every day.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I guess that this isn't like a perfect segue, but one of the things about the movie that I think you probably all noticed, and I'm wondering what you think about it, is like the relationship, or I don't know, that's the wrong word, like all of the religious aspects to it. Like, so there's like two sides of the movie that I see. There's all the religious symbols in the first movie that are more like, I would say, a little bit less obvious, except for like Trinity and some of them. But then in the second two films, it's more obvious, like with, basically being like a Jesus thing. And then you have like all the philosophy layered into it. Like, do you think that they were just playing with too much? Like, where they had too many ideas? I don't know. What do you think?
So the first movie is pretty overtly revolutionary. I mean, it ends with
oh yeah,
wake up by Rage Against the Machine. It's pretty blunt, and then 2 and 3 are a little bit more philosophical, which at the time, as a young pseudo intellectual emo kid, I ate that shit up. I loved learning about the influences by Eastern philosophy and reading the book The Matrix and Philosophy, and learning about all the things that inspired all the different characters and the Merovingian and all this really prescient stuff about AI. But yeah, I did think that the Christ messaging at the end of the third movie was a little heavy-handed. It kind of
heavy-handed.
Yeah, it ties everything together, I guess, sort of. But it was obvious that Neo was important. Like, nobody needed that emphasized. And I think his powers extending into the real world was enough of an emphasis anyway of his significance, without having the Christ on a cross imagery at the end. But I mean, there's still so many things I still love about those movies. I love the attack on Zion and the mechs and and the twins and the highway scene, and like there's so many things I still love about those movies, despite that if I were to have seen them for the first time as an adult, I probably would not have liked them anywhere near as much as the first one. But I like the whole series for different reasons. The Animatrix is crucial viewing for a Matrix fan, though. It really ties everything together really well. But the second Renaissance, 1 and 2, off of Animatrix are must watch, and those are they're about the rise of AI and AI becoming a sentient race, and then AI actually having to go through its own civil rights movement, and that civil rights movement failing, and then them realizing that their only chance is to create their own state overseas, and then they eventually take over the U.S. economy and manufacturing. And again, none of this is relevant.
No,
No,
none of this has any bearing on 2024. It's important. We're talking about the past.
I almost feel embarrassed that in my entire notes that I had, maybe even in my personal notes, I don't think I wrote the word. Oh, I did one place. I wrote AI, but it's like I had it. It's maybe it's like that. It's so obvious that you don't even need to say it, but it's very interesting when you think about. I mean, obviously we're nowhere near. People think we're like so far ahead in AI. We're like we're nowhere.
We're far enough ahead for it to contribute to the problems that we're having right now.
Yes, absolutely.
Agreed.
Misinformation and propaganda. I mean, it's like. So I remember a time when you would talk to people, and even if they were a complete and you didn't see yourself ever having any kind of relationship or association with them, you still felt like they had some fundamental grasp of reality. Now it's like it's 50-50. You are throwing a dart, and either that person is going to have any clue what's going on, or they're going to be completely out of their fucking mind. Like it doesn't seem like there's any middle ground. It's either hi, how are you, or the earth is flat and the fucking like. You don't know, and I hate it so much. I can't stand it. It drives me nuts. And all AI is going to do in the immediate future is it's going to contribute to that problem. And more maliciously, what it's going to do is people are going to weaponize it, and they're going to use it to spread misinformation about not only celebrities.
No one should.
They're going to use it to attack people that they don't like. And they already are. There's already revenge porn out there that's AI generated. But eventually the videos, within the next 5 years, within the next 2 years, are going to be probably indistinguishable from reality. And that's going to further obfuscate the very definition of reality. I mean, we've already got people who think that AI generated images of archaeologists with 15 fingers digging up gigantic skulls out of the ground are real. They're saying, it's prophecy. And it's like, God, how much lead poisoning do you have? For fuck's sake.
Oh, the cognitive, the need to maintain that indoctrination is so real with some people.
Well, and then
so now people are just constructing these elaborate bullshit worlds around themselves to reinforce their own biases, and AI is just going to make that work. And my fear, I try not to make predictions because I have been wrong about a lot of shit, but my fear is that it's going to upend society. I
mean, it already kind of is. For all the public AI services that are out there, there's a lot that we just don't have access to. There are language models now in our comment sections actively annoying us, and we can't tell the difference.
Block at least 10 it's usually pretty easy to tell because they're always like, you can get mushrooms from this Instagram. And it's like, okay, fed bot, fucking bot. But then every now and then it's like, I like your profile picture. Would you mind if I send you a friend? I'm like, fuck off. Get off my page.
You know how many sugar daddy requests I get in a week? Dudes with the longest beards going, hey, gorgeous. What do you think about receiving a weekly stipend in exchange for texting with me? I'm like, you definitely didn't look at my profile.
Well, and then this is not even to say like I mean, all of those horrible things, but also on top of that is just taking, hurting artists, people who make music, people who make art, and then who animators, people who write movies. I think I mentioned how George Carlin would be, like the person I'd want to meet, but there's also that AI special of his. It's all of this.
Spooky AI special. Spooky how good it was.
But yeah, I
didn't even want to give them any additional views because I disagreed with it.
Nobody watched that. Nobody. No.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Don't.
It's bad.
I already did. It's just watch it. Just watch an old special because that's basically what it is.
Yeah, I mean, to like, as far as, I mean, we talked a lot about like the concepts of the movie, and obviously we don't need to have no reason whatsoever to like go through the individual plots, but simply like talking about the first film, which I think is obviously is the best of the three and probably has the best messaging, and it's very very well done, and like the fight scenes and everything is just, it's an epic movie about it. But I guess I'm wondering, like, do you think that I mean, I think did you say, Joey, like it holds up, or maybe it just the effects holds up? But like,
all in all, it holds up. I mean, I feel like it becomes more culturally relevant all the time. I really do. Like even the scene with Thomas Anderson and Smith, where they're in the little box, where they're in the box, so they're the interrogation box, and he says, "What good is a phone call if you're not able to speak?" And you know, that scene is really cool and really weird, but like even just in our current climate, like it makes me think about censorship. Like it makes like I feel like I look at things through a different lens all the time when I watch that movie, just because it just becomes more of a mirror to what we're dealing with, you know? Like, I mean, they're trying to criminalize anybody who talks about Israel committing genocide. They're trying to make it fucking illegal. Like, that's so insane. That's so draconian and dystopian, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's wild. I keep forgetting about those people.
Yeah.
Well, and it makes your comment at the beginning of wanting to have eat with Charlie Chaplin, or talk to him, and like he literally suffered the same exact thing, in 1940, 65 years ago. So it's no more than that, 85 years ago. So it's nothing. Yeah, like as we all said, like nothing has changed in all of this. But I guess the only thing too is like, is there anything from the first movie that you like want to bring up that maybe isn't something, anything before we go into like more like the second two, which have more, I'd say, I don't want to say they have more plot.
There's a bit more to talk about in the second one for sure.
I would say.
For my money, the very first Matrix is like the perfect encapsulation of what they were trying to get at. It was just low key enough that if you knew, you knew. But if you didn't, you started thinking that way. That kind of worked against it when the right wing appropriated the red pill stuff, but they appropriate everything, so they're not worth worrying about. But yeah, for my money, that was the perfect idea. If they had just done the first Matrix and then the rest of their career, I think we'd have a wildly different perspective on them entirely.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think the first one is perfect.
You did say something about how you thought the second and third movie were kind of intentionally made and kind of interfered with the studio to dampen the revolutionary message.
Yes, I firmly believe that. Because like they went hardcore. They sold everything, The Matrix, when that movie came out. And when the second and third ones came out, they did the same thing. They hit it even harder. And like you can tell there's a different philosophy to how they're presenting things. Because in the first one, they're working with their $60 million budget. Yeah. So they're just kind of making a movie. But in this one, you can see they've got the car product placement. They got the glasses product placement. They got the phone product placement. They got the clothes product placement. They've got everything in this movie commodified to get some sort of cash out of it so they can sell it to us. Yeah. And I feel like, and this is going to make me sound unhinged, but I feel like it is a deliberate effort from the ruling class to blunt the revolutionary message. Because, I mean, I imagine a world without 2 and 3 and 4. Like, the first movie, it'd still be breaking eggs, and it still can. But, like, now with the second and third, there is way too much noise to get to the core of that excellent message.
Yeah. That has been kind of...
Do you think that that's why? I guess I don't know this question or the answer to the question. I wonder if because they had said in interviews, the Wachowskis, that they wanted to fit everything into the first movie, but they couldn't do it, and that's just what ended up happening. I wonder if the studio, obviously seeing that the first movie made $467 million, which is in a $400 million profit plus all the stuff they sold, to them to say like, oh, we really do want you to make these second and third movies because it's in our interest to make it for making money, and it's also your interest because you like this world and you have more to say. So it's almost like these dueling things of the studio wanting this movie for money purposes and them wanting to make it for the messaging, and probably the intermixing of those led them to cut things that probably made these movies more revolutionary, as you said.
I mean,
go ahead.
It's certainly possible, and that would explain Lena Wachowski's approach to the fourth film, which is kind of an indictment of what the whole thing has become. I mean, Thomas Anderson is literally the creator of The Matrix, which is a video game and is a product with merchandising, and he's shoveling blue pills into his face, and like there's all this, and the special effects in the movie are notably smoothed out, probably intentionally, whereas the previous movies are very gritty. The fourth movie is very glossy and kind of like almost like a product of some sort, and I think that all of that is pretty intentional, and I think that's why he doesn't want any involvement with anything moving forward, despite their desire to make more movies.
Well, according to, this is purely from Wiki. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't blame her at all. After 2 and 3, I wouldn't have gone back. I'd just been like, sure, do it on your own. I'm gonna get on social media and disavow.
Well, apparently,
I think he may have been trying to kill the series with 4. It's like a love letter to people who get it, but it's also like a massive fuck you to everybody else. And that kind of that's reflected in some of the interviews with her too.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of the interviews. I'll have to check that again, but I agree. It does feel that way.
Yeah, apparently, like the studios always wanted there to be a fourth movie for, I think, going back 10 years before it even came out. It's like 2014, 13, and essentially they didn't want to do it, but I guess at some point the money was too good, and people were starting to attach themselves to wanting to do it, and I think they probably would have rather had them do it than have some other one co-opt their concept and ruin it. So I think it is really a fuck you to the studio, saying like, you made me make this, and now I'm going to show everyone who, like you said, gets it, that this is a commercialized piece of shit now. What's
also interesting about the whole premise of the fourth movie is that The Matrix was reconstructed with the help of the analyst to keep everybody kind of even more submerged in the race of pursuing unachievable aims. Like, success is always right out of reach. There's always some bureaucratic obstacle, and the analyst literally has the ability to manipulate time. So there's a lot of stuff there that's kind of on the nose too.
We're probably going to talk about powers in this particular franchise a lot, but I kind of feel like the writers, be they the Wachowskis or whoever else is making these decisions, just sort of grants people powers at random. I mean, we can even go into the second one where, like, we understand that Neo is fully in control of the Matrix, but they never really define what that means. Mm-hmm. So, like, in the third act, he's reaching into people and defying physics to revive them, even though that was not something they even indicated might be a possibility.
Well, according to the architect of the Matrix, the concept of Neo was put in there intentionally, and then the Matrix itself has actually gone through multiple resets. And I was reading on Reddit that somebody thought that maybe that's a metaphor for like extinction level events. Which is possible.
I want to say almost it's more of a metaphor for like activists, revolutionaries, and freedom fighters eventually being bought out by the system.
That makes sense too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you think about it, they get to the apex point where they think they're supposed to go. The point where they can actually affect change. And then every time up until Neo, they've always gone, oh, well, I guess I'll double down and join the system.
Well, if they can't crush you and they can't kill you, then they'll just buy you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's sort of how I see that bit. But extinction level events, I could totally buy that too.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the, in talking, I guess we're kind of kind of combining those second two in a way. But one, like in some of the interviews, and this actually makes a lot of sense in some of the things that I noted in my notes before I watched some of the interviews, is the first one obviously is this idea of like you having this choice to, you know, open your mind to realize what, you know, what life it really is, or stay in this dream world of just, oh yeah, you know, two-party system is great, you know, whatever. But then in like the second movie, when he does meet the architect, he's basically saying to him, you know, there is no actual choice. It's like, this is an illusion that we have been convinced that it's actually available to us, but
so the Merovingian was the one who said that choice is an illusion.
Oh, Merovich. Okay, I got them wrong.
Between those with power and those without.
Yes.
Yeah. Created by those. Wait, what was it? I wrote it down. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without.
I mean,
that was the Merovingian. And the Merovingian was a rogue AI program that decided it just wanted to enjoy the fruits of the Matrix. I could totally see an AI program doing that.
I mean, doesn't that just strike you as very explicitly like describing our political system?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I don't think there's any way other. I mean, obviously it could go to other things, but just we are controlled by money.
We're seeing that come to fruition now. It doesn't matter how much you work if you're not paid enough to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Half of renters can't afford their rent. 1 in 5 houses is either owned by a banker or an investor, I believe. Half of young adults live with their parents. The average cost of higher education is $36,436. Like, there are literally obstacles to advancing as a person. Like, it doesn't have any correlation with your merit or your intelligence or your ability. It's a birth lottery.
Exactly.
And they have a vested interest in keeping it that way. And we're seeing that with, and people are figuring it out, at least with the entertainment industry. They're figuring out that the nepotism is rampant, and that dream of going to Hollywood and getting your big break is shrinking for the average person, because they're just hiring the people they know or their kids or whoever else. And it's all intertwined. It's all this growing chasm between the haves and have-nots. And you're seeing it in their behavior. They're becoming more self-congratulatory and more preachy and more condemning of the have-nots, of the peons, of the peasants. Even I mean, the Met Gala and the whole premise of it was a story about suppressing a working class revolt, and one of the influencers who went to the Met Gala, whose tickets cost $75,000, by the way.
$75,000. Like,
literally,
that would be a
video of herself adorned, vaguely resembling Marie Antoinette, and saying, "Let them eat."
She got dragged so hard for it too.
And she got dragged, and it became this whole thing. Then she just said, I didn't know what I was doing. It's like, that doesn't help. It's like,
that's worse.
We don't know that you're out of touch. Saying that you're out of touch isn't going to make us not think that you're out of touch, just because your reason for being out of touch is ignorance versus giving a shit about it. Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We're seeing that happen. We are seeing the illusion of choice break down before our very eyes.
Oh, yeah. Manifesting in a lot of weird ways. Like, I've always held that it's going to be the circuses that cause us to revolt more than the bread. But, like, between that Let Them Eat Cake slip and the Drake Kendrick thing, and, God, there's another celebrity thing happening that I can't remember off the top of my head. But I feel like it's all coming together, and that's the thing that's really going to tip this off, is just all of us seeing, oh, wait, all these celebrities we thought were great are just kind of idiots.
People are starting to see that more than I ever remember.
Yeah,
blocking them, and
I am cheering for the disillusion of celebrity culture. I fully support it, and I think that these weird parasocial relationships need to end, because the people who engage in them seem to share more compassion and empathy for these rich strangers in ivory towers that they're never going to meet, who will never know or care that they exist, than the people right fucking next to them. And I've experienced that firsthand my whole life. It's like, you are fawning over this person, meanwhile you are treating me and everybody else around you like shit, Don't you see how upside down that is? And I want people to figure that out. And that's class consciousness. People need to get class conscious.
Yes.
If anything is going to get better.
And it feels so close. Honestly, yes, we need to get rid of celebrity culture, and this is where I'm going to go a little more, a little galaxy brain. Humans are only supposed to know like up to 500 people, I think it is. Like I've heard the number be 144, like 400 and something. But
they were only supposed to know so many people in our lives.
Yes, exactly. Like, and I think celebrities are a deliberate attempt to fill that list with people that are under the state's control.
I saw somebody on my page. I posted a big thing that got shared a bunch about the Nepo babies. But somebody went on there and they were like, I think that the parasocial relationships are probably weirder now because of the isolation that we're experiencing as a culture. I mean, like I did another podcast. I went on Don. I talked about how we're becoming an increasingly isolated culture and how it's manufacturing more and more like young reactionary incels and you know, like it absolutely feeds into parasocial relationships with celebrities, many of whom are just douche nozzles like fucking Andrew Tate or Ben Shapiro or whoever else, who are just gonna perpetuate that cycle of telling you you don't fucking need anybody or anything, and these dudes are thinking, well, he's got a Bugatti and a mansion, like maybe if I'm a piece of shit to everybody around me, then I'll get those things too. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Like it's not reality. Just because they've figured out how to exploit the attention economy and monetize it doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. You have to have redeeming qualities as a fucking person, like
or backing, financial backing.
Yeah, or you know, a small loan of $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have a whole personality that people like, or generational wealth to succeed on social media.
Yeah. Or both.
Usually both.
Or
usually both. In
this case, say the most ignorant, outrageous bullshit you possibly can to drive engagement, and then a lot of people, some smart people, look at that and they say, well, they figured it out. They figured out the trick, and it's like, well, what they're doing is they are affecting culture. They are affecting the way that people think and the way that people interact and the way that they treat each other. And that is something that has consequences. And I had a conversation with somebody earlier today about it. I was like, what I don't think you understand about what's happening right now is if enough people believe that the earth is flat, what is going to happen is they are going to elect legislators who believe that the earth is flat. And then those legislators are going to say, I want flat earth curriculum in the schools. And this is how the theocratic bullshit is happening. And it's going to happen with all manner of misinformation unless we figure out a way to tip the scales in the other direction.
Yes, that is, yes. And figuring out the way to tip the scales is the only thing we need right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, but it's also plays into this and is just the idea of them trying to ban TikTok, because people go on there and actually can learn things that they don't learn in school, or they can see the atrocities happening an ocean away that they couldn't have normally seen. And I think they worry that they're not going to get that in school, so they're going to seek it somewhere. We don't want them to do that because that would be bad. So
the perfect thing for the media to point at and say, see, your kids are doing bullshit challenges. They're eating Tide Pods or microwaving plastic, whatever the bullshit. And it's like, you are singling out 5 people. And meanwhile, the most popular content on TikTok is people talking about Palestine. Like, and that's what it's really about. That's what the ban is really about. And people are like,
Completely.
well, no, it's about data privacy. Like, these companies have never given a shit about data privacy. They are all selling your data. They've sold your data to China already. And it's like, they act like it's this fucking splinter cell on their phone. It's like we have their data and security branch is here in Texas. It's operated by a company called Oracle. Those are American employees.
Yes.
No fucking different than any of these other companies. You don't understand how this shit works. They're banning it to shut people up talking about Palestine. That's why they're doing it right now.
The whole ban was just a bid for them to try and take control of this thing that they couldn't manipulate externally. The forcing of the sale of TikTok away from ByteDance is politically the same as them popping Saddam Hussein. They're just getting rid of the middleman.
Yeah, completely. So this is going to like one of the things in the movie I'm curious about is So
Oh yeah,
you
we
have
were
all
talking
the-
about a movie.
yeah. Well, this like I'll try and tie some of that to this, but some of the like, especially like the second movie where we kind of get the, the more Jesus kind of God-ish ending. There's some other like maybe characters or people within the movie that I'm curious how you interpret them. And the one that I'm thinking about first off is sort of like the Oracle, who appears in all the movies, and we see her then at the very end of the final movie. I'm wondering how you like, what is your read on her and like how she fits in, and it goes because I think she has precognition. Is that how she's?
So here's another one of those instances of I think the first movie did it right and didn't really need to expand upon it. Was in the first movie the whole idea of the Oracle was sure she's precognitive or whatever, but what Morpheus said was he said he told you what you needed to hear, and what
Right.
he told Neo was that he wasn't the one, and of course he was the one. But he told him that because it was what he needed to hear, and then later on Smith gains her powers of precognition by absorbing her or whatever. But like the first movie encapsulated it very effectively of what the Oracle was. It was she said what he needed to hear. She didn't actually prophesize anything, and like when he's in her apartment and she says don't worry about the vase, and he turns around and knocks the vase over and it shatters, and then he says I'm sorry, and she says don't worry about it. And the question is, would you have knocked it over if I hadn't said anything?
That is yes, that is an.
That was the Oracle to me. Like it was a cool concept. And another idea came into my head. I was like, when on your little breakdown of the episode, it was, do you think Morpheus was right? And it's like, well, the question is, would Neo have been the one if Morpheus didn't believe he was?
Why?
I mean, that's you almost could say no, right? Because you almost needed someone to believe that you had the ability to do something that you couldn't find within yourself any other way.
Yeah.
Well, Morpheus was one of the original 15 that the the one chose, if I remember correctly. So I think every group in the 5 instances prior had one person who was like, I thoroughly believe in this person because I appreciate them for liberating me. I think having that kind of cheerleader was gonna be a constant if they're controlling exactly how precise this whole equation plays out.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh God, there was something I was gonna say. Oh right, the Oracle absolutely did predict exactly what would happen. If you remember in the first movie, the Oracle says, "No, you're not the one. You could be, but you're waiting on something. I don't know, maybe your next life." And then the end of the movie, he doesn't get his powers until he gets shot.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a nerd. I can't help it. I'm a nerd and I have ADHD. I can't not notice anything.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The whole. I guess this is also a question on like this is more like your opinion of the second two because of all of the white savior-y aspect towards the end and some of this kind of heavy-handedness with, I would say, like the keymaster, and you have sort of the architect and all these things. Like, do you even saying all that and maybe some of the problems with them? Like, what would you still say? What would you still say as far as the ending of the whole series that you still think ends up working? Despite some of like these plot holes and things like that.
I like the ending where the Oracle is talking about anybody who's freed. Anybody who wants to be freed can be. Anybody who wants to stay can. And it's kind of this sunny, kind of utopian looking backdrop. I like that, but I also when I was taking notes for this, I thought about how that's kind of a contradiction of what Smith said about the original version of the Matrix. He said that it was designed to be a paradise, but everybody rejected the program. He said entire crops were lost. He said, so people were dying because they could tell that it wasn't real. So my thought was, wouldn't that mean that people would be dying because now they know the Matrix isn't real? If they decide to stay, would that kill them?
I wonder if lost whole crops really does mean like they died, or if like
he was talking about entire crops were lost. He was talking about people.
Oh yeah, no, I know he was talking about people, but I'm wondering if he specifically meant people were dying, or if lost crops meant mass exodus from the Matrix.
No, people were dying.
Were they? Okay.
Yeah, it was people dying.
Okay.
Read another thing on one of the wikis about it. They was definitely referring to
Oh, okay, all right, okay. So there's some expanded universe information I didn't have. Excellent.
their brains were rejecting the program because they could tell that it wasn't real. So they would,
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I see. Okay. So
Yeah.
so it actually is sort of both things that you're saying. It's almost sort of
what
both.
we're referring to is called self-substantiation, which is where you figure out that the matrix isn't real and your mind is strong enough that you can actually unplug yourself, which is what my probably my favorite character under Neo is Karl Popper as a kid.
Yes.
In the Animatrix, the story of the kid is told, and he's in Matrix Revolutions and Matrix Reloaded. He eventually adorns one of the mechs and suits the
Yes, he
Sentinel.
does.
And he's like this starry-eyed, envious, loves Neo, worships the ground he walks on. But in the Animatrix, he is this rebellious kid who has kind of figured out what the Matrix is because he's kind of fallen down the internet rabbit hole where that information is, and so he eventually gets tailed by agents, and runs out of his school, and of course the faculty are kind of stopping because they don't like him because he's a rebellious weird kid or whatever. So
Oh, yeah, okay.
I instantly resonated with that story. And he's skateboarding, and then it's this really abstract, cool animation, and then at the end of it, he says, "Neo, I believe," and he kills himself. He jumps off a building and he kills himself. And then so you see
That's right.
and you see the funeral, and you see the teacher talking about well, he's in a better place now or whatever, but he wakes up and Neo and Trinity are over him, and they're like, I've never seen a self-substantiation before, and then he says, "Neo, you saved me," and he's like, "You saved yourself, kid."
That's right. I remember.
I love that story so much.
I was struggling to remember who the kid was. I totally forgot about the Animatrix for this.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
It's see, there's all this stuff that's interwoven. The movies have their issues, but the expanded universe is so fucking good.
Yes, it is. There was also another self-substantiation story in the Animatrix with the Olympic runner, if I remember correct.
Yes.
I mean, not as successful, but it was a neat way to look at that again and see a failure.
It was a near successful one, and then they just disabled him so that he wouldn't get out, basically. But the agent, the machine disabled him, and then he's basically in a vegetative state in a wheelchair.
Now, I didn't realize that was an active choice on the agent's part. I thought that was just like a side effect of failing to self-substantiate.
They did it. They did it to him.
Okay, well, that makes way more sense in my head. I was sitting here going oh wow, I didn't realize trying to exit the system could be that harmful. Though, it kind of makes sense. You're having everything. I don't know. Anyway, it's neither here nor there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought when they said lost crops, I thought they meant mass self-substantiation. I didn't realize it was canonically they were dead.
They were dying because their brains were rejecting the program.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
So then, did that version of the Matrix have a 1 and a subsequent 6 men, 7 women selection? Or is that an artifact of this version of the Matrix? I wonder.
Say that again?
The very first one where it was just bliss. I wonder if that also had the equation that they reference in the second one that necessitated the selecting of the 1 and then the 7 women, 6 men to build the new Zion. I wonder if that had a first iteration, or if the equation is just a byproduct of making misery the most important part of the simulation.
Yeah, I think it's the latter, because the misery and the drudgery is what keeps people believing that it's real, which is again an obvious indictment of capitalism.
Oh, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, and I hate. You know what? I hate that you can't even say the word capitalism to a lot of people, because it's this thought terminating word, because they hear it and they're immediately just "Oh, so you like gulags and bread lines?" It's just look up what the fucking word. And I was thinking about this the other, and this is something I've thought about a lot for a long time. And as I've talked to people, some people have been honest with me about it. They're like, "Oh yeah, I use words that I don't really know the meaning of." Like, and now I see it. I see it everywhere. People do, like, people attach emotional meaning to words without actually knowing what the words mean. Uh, Capitalism is a great example of that. Socialism is another great example of that. These words get flung around, and people, like, you can Google what they mean, and people won't do it. It's the weirdest thing, and that's probably just decades of McCarthyist bullshit being crammed down their throats, so that they have an emotional reaction to the word capitalist. Like, look up what it is. Everything you're complaining about is what that is. It's the private ownership of the means of production. That asshole sitting in a corner office doing nothing, taking your paycheck and buying a second home is a capitalist. You are not a capitalist. You are a laborer. That is the capitalist. The person
but his boots taste so. But his boots taste so delicious. I need to lick them.
It's like, we ever have this conversation about people saying, like, "Oh, you're young and bad." Like, I hate that there were people so irrational about this.
I feel like, because a big component of that particular thing is they are really confused about what capitalism actually means. A large group of people will look at commerce and say that's capitalism because money is being exchanged. And it's like, no, commerce is a fact of life, my dude. As long as I've got potatoes, that guy has wheat, and that person has DVDs, we're going to be trading.
I had a conversation with somebody not too long ago about that because they were criticizing Serge Tankian of System of a Down for selling a book, and I was like, that book is the product of his labor. He wrote it. He's selling the book is not capitalism, that's commerce. The owner of the factory where the book is produced is the capitalist.
Exactly.
And you can easily subvert that person if the people who work in that factory own shares of the factory. Like, it's just you can't expect everybody to be on the level. It's just the weaponized ignorance that frustrates me so much, because that's our biggest obstacle to progress. And the bastards, the powers that be, they know it, and they have taken full advantage of it for the past fucking 70 years to make people completely rabid and irrational when it comes to these topics.
Yeah, you need less people like Cypher that are willing to just be this sell. And then it's actually, you were talking. It also is the thing that people think that when you describe capitalism, it's like the meme. It's so memed at this point. Just when you describe capitalism, they're like, oh, that's communism. Like, no, sir, that's not.
No, it isn't.
It's just this fundamental, as you're saying, it's this fundamental misunderstanding, and it's very intentional. I mean, I was just reading about East German cinema in like the 1940s and 50s, where they were creating movies that were explicitly pro-communist against specific movies in America that were explicitly pro-capitalist. And so you have to compete with these kinds of things for 75, 80 years. I mean, they're shoving it down your throat. And you think about The Matrix in itself being pretty revolutionary. Obviously, there's movies at that time that have these messages, but I think it's one of the most successful ones.
Well, sure, but like you can't get like the common man to sit down and watch something like a Watermelon Man movie, which is way more explicit about what it has to say than The Matrix, which let the language take a step back and just sort of let the intent come forward, which is why so many people resonated with it. It was absent those big scary words that made them fear actual freedom.
Like, you have to manipulate people. I don't like it. I don't like having to manipulate people. I don't want to be dishonest, Like, I don't like that we can't just address the elephant in the room, that we have to tiptoe around the fucking problem. It drives me nuts. It's like, sooner or later, I mean, it's good. It's not going to work out. Like, it's just a matter of whether we die in a nuclear war or in some slow, steady, simmering boil into oblivion, which seems more likely to me.
I was going to say that's the one we're shooting for, I think.
Yeah, and it's like, our only chance is figuring this out, because this is not an infinitely replenishable planet that we live on. The concept of infinite growth is not possible. We will run out of food. We will run out of oil. We will run out of these things. They are not infinite. This planet is not magic. So we have to figure it out.
Planet is not magic.
It's not a magic little wizard ball that can just replenish everything by itself. And like,
no, it's not. It's not just an orb that 3D prints resources. White people, it's a finite thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, You can kill all the trees. We can kill all the trees, and then we won't have trees anymore.
We can kill all of the species, and then we won't have anything.
We can poison everything in the ocean, and then the food chain will break.
And we're sure as fuck trying, aren't we?
You don't know what the food chain like. I learned about the food chain in like the 3rd grade. Like
seriously,
something eats something else. If the something that the something is eating dies, then the something doesn't get like. Are you really not piecing this? I feel like I had no idea how apparently freakish it is to understand the interconnectedness of all this shit. But you talk to people, and it's like you're just vomiting calculus. And, like, I don't understand why it's. I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's so weird. Like, the people who need to hear this are so individualized. They cannot see how a word they might say might contribute to a greater thing, because they don't see themselves as part of that thing. They don't see themselves as even contributing to that thing. So, like, trying to get people to realize, like, hey, you're actually part of the problem, and I'm not saying you're bad. I'm just saying you don't know any better, and people can't get past that.
Like, you're a carbon-based life form, and you are intertwined in all of this, just like we are. The food you eat comes from somewhere. The air you breathe comes from somewhere. The water you drink comes from somewhere. You are not an island. You will never be an island. Even if you psych yourself out to the point where you want nothing to do with anybody, you are still a part of this species, and these things are intertwined.
Yeah, I mean, even shut-ins are still part of the society, right? Shut-ins can't survive without human contact, like, period. Even if they choose not to talk to anybody, they still have to go buy food. They still have to get medicine. They still have to have a place to live.
Misanthrope. I'm working on it. You know, I'm aware of these things. I understand that I am not an island, and that I need other people in order to exist. You know,
I am also I am a recovering misanthrope as well. I feel you.
Well, I think all of these things boils down to just the concept of, like, American exceptionalism as being, you have to be an individual and succeed on your own. There's no consideration for the greater good. That's kind of the greatest way, but it actually is like a good metaphor for, you know, Zion in the movies. Is these people are working together in like the greatest sense, fighting off like the truly most evilest thing beyond what we can imagine of these sentinels. There's millions of them. I don't know how many they say, lots of them. And it takes like literally like an act of God to end those things. And I think if people were more like, you know, the people there and working as I think you said earlier, like being class conscious and understanding that you are not alone. I think also people do feel alone. Loneliness.
Oh, yeah. Of course. We're all made to feel alone.
Alienation.
It encourages loneliness at a level that's fucking depraved.
Yeah, the entire culture, especially in America, is pretending there's nothing wrong with you, never being honest about anything, and screwing each other over for a buck. That's really it. Of course we're going to be lonely.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I can count on one hand the people that I trust, and that's an act of self-preservation, because people will take advantage of you. They've been raised to believe their entire lives that all of their value is tied to their ability to profit or gain. I still suffer from that internalized. I have that internalized bullshit myself that I'm constantly dealing with, where it's like, well, you know, I'm not this and I'm not that, and like my partner, she has to encourage me all the time. She's like, you're doing great. Like, you're not a drug addict, like you're not homeless, like, or unhoused. You're not, like, you're doing okay. And I have to be reminded of that all the time, because I grew up surrounded by people who said that if you were a millionaire, you were a worthless piece of shit, you know?
Yeah, yes, I fully know.
I'm a millionaire, too. It's like, why are we even fucking doing this to each other? Like,
who the fuck would want to be a millionaire? That sounds boring. Like, I'd have $1 million for 10 minutes.
Like, I'm out here getting judged by people who are in the same boat or worse than me. Like, what are you doing? Get mad at those assholes.
But no, they got to yell at us because we aren't working hard enough, apparently.
I mean, and it all comes down to, like, what I think that so many of these people don't understand is, and why you want people to have a home and a job and food. If you have all of these things met, all of your needs are met, you actually have. Imagine the free time you would have to not have to work for a 40. You could work 3 days a week because they've proven you don't really need to work 5 days and all these different things. It's just money is being funneled up. And I think so many people on on the right and all these things, they like have this mistrust in the government, but they don't have the right. They're just misguided as far as who they're blaming.
They are misguided. If you actually listen to their rhetoric long term and sort of like cut out the ignorant stuff, conservatives are fully aware that everything about their life is wrong. Where they diverge is whose fault it is.
Yeah.
Because you could feed them communist rhetoric, and get them to agree. But then as soon as you go, and whose fault is it? And they say slurs.
Yeah, they're wrapped up in the culture war bullshit. Which is why I don't, unless I think the last culture war thing I did was my Barbie song. I don't know. Maybe you can insert that.
Oh yeah, I would if you send it, I could certainly throw that.
The link, it's on.
I've definitely heard it. I remember it.
Yeah. Serra, I did this song about the Barbie movie where I was making fun of all the dudes like writing dissertations about how emasculating the movie.
Oh my god! So I
was making fun of Ben Shapiro and Ryan Gosling and
I actually subjected myself to Ben Shapiro's first video. I think it was 35 minutes long. I got to maybe 25 minutes and then I gave in.
You beat me. I can't stand more than 5 or 10 minutes of that kid.
Oh, normally I wouldn't have done it, but I was like, I'm going to do it just for this episode on Barbie. I'm going to see what he says. And then I decided not to even include it in the episode because I don't want to actually give him I don't know, publicity for what he's saying.
Yeah.
Not the people who listen to Ben Shapiro are probably listening to this podcast. The odds are 0. But you don't want to give his hate listen.
Hate listen, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Listen. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. Are there any? I know you both have a bunch of. We've strayed up slightly, but I think a positive conversation. But is there anything as far as the 2-3 movies that we haven't talked about? Is there any sort of have any? I don't want to say final thoughts, but sort of last things that we haven't gotten a chance to get to.
There's a note here I actually wanted to hit really quick, and this is going to be more film criticism than political, but I find it fascinating. So typically when you depict combat in a movie, combat is a debate between the two characters, and certainly that's present in the first movie. After all, Neo and Smith are a debate versus change versus the status quo. But in 2, at the very least, when I watched it through, I realized what was happening throughout the movies is the characters would come together, debate, and then fight. And the fights didn't really have anything to do with what was going on. It didn't really most of the fight scenes were really silent aside from reaction noises or stuff like that. If that makes any sense. So in this movie, they use debate as debate, and it kind of makes the movie feel odd.
Yeah, when Neo is fighting in the whatever that foyer with the staircases, which is a cool scene, but it's bunch of philosophizing and then we fight now.
Exactly. They get together, throw a word cloud at each other, and then they're now we got to hit each other.
Kind of an old kung fu movie kind of thing.
Well, and then I also think, I don't know what you both think about this, but I was watching in the third movie, if you clock the final fight scene between Smith and Neo, I think it's 9 or 8 or 9 minutes long. I felt like it didn't need to be as long as it was. It was a really good scene, and they just
when they're in the ring.
Yes, the very last
really cool.
point. Yeah,
it's very cool, but it's too long.
I see.
That's my critique.
If that had been the longest, if that had been the one time that they got really indulgent and okay, well, we're ending the movie, so let's be very indulgent about it, I think it would have been better received. But because we've been through an entire movie full of really indulgent fight scenes and really indulgent dialogue scenes, by the end we're just kind of okay, come on, let's get it over with. I don't need to watch these guys fight in slow motion.
That's my one critique about the end. I'd say, like, aside from like more technically wise, just it could have been a little shorter.
A lot of stuff that I love about those movies. I like the idea of Bane and Smith managing to hijack a person's mind and take it into the real world. I thought their casting choice for Bane was really good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they did. Fantastic choice.
They did a really good casting choice with that. Something else that occurred to me when I was refreshing my memory about the fourth movie was at the end, there's a bunch of attack helicopters. And I was like, I wonder if Lena did that because of the whole I identify as an attack helicopter thing.
That would be pretty funny.
I was like, maybe she did. Because,
to be fair, attack helicopters permeate the movie, kind of. Or permeate the entire franchise. So, I don't know. I'll have to rewatch that scene, though.
Yeah, but, I thought the only other helicopter was in the first one.
It's so good in the first one. When it, crashes into the building, it's so good.
Oh, no, that's right. They joked about a second one, but they implied that there was going to be a second one, but then they ended up with a vehicle instead. I think it was in the freeway scene.
Yeah. The freeway scene's awesome, too.
Maybe everything. I don't know.
Oh, it is. The fight scenes were great. I would happily watch a whole movie of just those fight scenes with a minimum amount of dialogue. It's called an action movie. But, they didn't distribute it enough, and so, it felt like if you took the fight scenes out of these movies, you could take both of them together and have 2 episodes of a Netflix series.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
What I think is crucial watching, probably above anything else, is the second Renaissance 1 and 2.
Agreed.
Yeah. Because so not only does it go through the development of the AI and the AI gaining its own personhood, and then the AI protests and civil rights, and you see the violent suppression by the police, and then they eventually build their own state, and then they end up taking over the U.S. economy and manufacturing, and then eventually they go to Congress because they went to war. Yeah, they went to war, and then so in the first movie, when Morpheus says it was us who scorched the sky, that was what they were doing. Was they were intentionally blocking out the sun because the sun was the main source of power for the machines. So they were deliberately blocking out the sun. So that's depicted in the Animatrix as well. And then that was what compelled the machines to begin using people as the replenishable resource. Because before it was solar power, and then they realized, okay, well, you took that away from us, so now we're going to use your bodies.
This is where I go back to it. This is an old Cracked article from Once Upon a Time, but apparently the original premise was not that we were batteries, but we were part of a massive parallel processor, which to me makes more sense. The only reason they went with batteries is because executives thought people wouldn't understand what processors working in unison, even though the military was using a bay of PS3s at the time to do some of their work. I don't know.
Would have used our brains for processing.
Yeah.
To mine Bitcoin.
Chaotic relationship with the Matrix itself, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
That would have made the whole franchise better for me. Not that it was bad, but that at least makes sense to me. But batteries, we don't produce a whole lot of energy that we don't immediately use to keep our body alive.
Yeah. But it's
sci-fi. Yeah, it's sci-fi. So I don't. It's sci-fi, so it doesn't have to make sense.
It's not real.
It's not. No.
The Matrix isn't real.
One of the other things we wanted to touch on was the whole thing. I think that. So we could really get into the philosophical weeds here, and I think there's a lot of metaphysical stuff that I don't understand. I think there's been a lot of very strange occurrences and coincidences and things in my life that I don't understand. I believe that there is more to this existence than meets the eye, but you can drive yourself insane trying to figure out where that line is. I feel like that's what we're witnessing happening with flat Earth and with a lot of this extreme pseudoscientific stuff that's going around, is people are beginning to question thousands of years of established facts and truth and reality. And you know, like even okay, say this is a simulation. It's still like the Matrix operates under certain confines and rules. Um, for example, you can look out the fucking window and see the moon and stars, and you can buy a telescope and you can point it at the moon and you can see that there is something there. And you can go and you can watch rockets being launched into the sky that were built by engineers and scientists who are not all coordinating to deceive you. That is completely fucking ludicrous to believe. And the problem with the mission, the problem with this thing that I love so much, is that it has completely scrambled so many people's minds, and now they just
You are totally right.
And the same thing goes for the Truman Show. People watch the Truman Show and they took it literally. People watch The Matrix and they took it literally. The Truman Show, in particular, I used to have a flat earther I had a radio show and I had a flat earther on all the time, and he genuinely believed that the sky was like an elaborate deception because of the Truman Show. And he had never been on a plane, so he believed that the idea of flying in a plane was in one manner or another a deception, and
It's,
the amount, like, you really believe that everybody with a fucking PhD, every engineer, every person, every mechanic, every astrophysicist, you think all of these fucking people are lying to you on purpose, or they're being duped. The people who have devoted the past 10 plus years of their life to their field of study, no less than you do, because you watch some fucking YouTube videos of some wooks connecting dots where they shouldn't have.
And scene.
Matrix is so brilliant, but it has just like, and this is where we get into the topic of media literacy and why media literacy is important, because you have to be able to watch something and understand what the intent was, so that you don't fucking create all this bullshit in your head. And that's what people do with stuff. They've done it with Fight Club. They've done it with The Matrix. They do it with everything.
oh
They do it
God.
with American Psych. You're not supposed to idolize Patrick Bateman.
No, you're not. He's a piece of shit.
But, you know, truth be told, when I was a teenager, I kind of did. I was like, I loved that movie so much, and I was like, I'm going to talk like Patrick Bateman. And like, you know, like, it's like, I get the literally me thing, I think, but, you know, if you're in your fucking 30s doing that, like, you should stop.
There are so many people who to this day are still doing a shitty impression of Gordon Gekko because of that goddamned movie.
My parents used to tell me that the people that I couldn't stand in high school, that they would eventually grow up and realize the error of their way.
No, they didn't.
Being a big fucking lie.
No, exactly one person from my past realized the errors of their ways and apologized to me personally. The rest are either doubled down or dead. So
I was gonna say that most of the ones I know doubled down.
Whether it's celebrity worship, this naive belief that all the rich and famous people are heroes, or, you know, the myth of American exceptionalism, I think people hold on to people need hope. I get that. I get that people need hope. They need something to believe in, but we need to make a better world in order for that belief and that hope to not be misplaced.
I feel like sometimes hope can be pretty toxic too. I mean, like, think about the people in Jim Baker's creepy little condo compound out in the mountains. Those people have hope every day that Jesus will come back and validate their horrible, bigoted beliefs.
That's right. Hope can be a dangerous thing.
And I think hope tempered with action is probably the best course.
Yeah. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes,
too.
it is.
Indeed, yeah.
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 Let's see. I'm going to go through my notes, make sure there's anything.
Yeah, if you have any last
I made a joke about like 80% of the movie being colored like mint chocolate chip ice cream, but I mean, it's especially apparent in the Merovingian because they didn't do the green gray over. They just made everything have shades of green, or at least that's what it looks like to me. So, like, the whole movie is bathed in this mint chocolate chip aesthetic that would be cool if they'd have done less of it.
Yeah. Yeah, like the first movie, it seemed like they did the green thing, but then there was also very muted gray scenes, like the lobby scene was just kind of the muted gray color of the stone. Like they and when they're in the skyscrapers and the Apaches, there's a lot of blue. So like anytime they show the city, capital city, like when you're in the high rises, it's very blue. So there was a little bit more variation with the colors in the first movie.
Yeah, whereas in these two, like, you either get green or we don't own light bulbs.
Yeah.
I mean, it all looks good, so I'm laughing at it, still going like, yeah, these are all really solid choices for what they were trying to do. I just don't know that they were really good ideas.
Yeah.
I guess it worked in the end, for the most part.
I was very uncritical of the movies growing up. I was very sucked into the lore and the expanded universe, and for all those movies' flaws, I still love them, and I still love the Wachowskis. And every time they give everybody the finger, it makes me happy.
Oh yeah. With all the flaws throughout the Matrix movies, I will still go and see every Wachowski sisters movie that ever happens. Like, from now until I'm 95, I will hobble my ass into a theater to support them.
They did the Matrix. What have they done outside of the Matrix?
They did a pretty good Speed Racer movie.
I heard that had some very explicit messaging as well.
It did, and their style actually loaned itself to the whole Speed Racer presentation. Like, they managed to.
It's like the whole thing. Yeah, like
it's very colorful. It's very bright. Like, you could very easily call it a Target advertisement or a car commercial or what have you. But like, one of the really important things they did was try to emulate the anime in a lot of ways. So, like, they'd have those weird tight cuts with an individual frame, and when you combine all of these frames, it describes an action that the character is taking, and they emulated that quite a bit.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, they Americanized it quite a bit, but they still tried to hone into that. But the movie I think they did the best at is Cloud Atlas.
That one. Tom Hanks.
Yes. Tom Hanks, Hugo Weaving, bunch of other people. It's also the one where they get the most problematic because they put Hugo Weaving in yellowface. But there is a purpose to it. I don't know if it justifies it, but at the very least, there's a reason for it, because it's like this. The movie is about these handful of souls all throughout history, and the various times they meet each other in different reincarnations and how they all interconnect.
Oh, okay. I feel like I watched it once. God knows how long ago. I don't know. I was probably drunk or something.
No, I highly recommend watching it again, but it is a long one, so you might want to take breaks.
Yeah. What else?
Oh God, let me think. They also did a really terrible movie. Hang on, let me plug that in. It's the name is right on the tip of my tongue.
Jupiter Ascending.
There it is. There it is. Jupiter Ascending. Absolute garbage.
No.
Yeah, I have not seen that, but I remember it. It lost money too. Like, it didn't do too well. It also has
it did not
Channing
do very
Tatum
well.
in it, I think.
Channing Tatum and what's her name?
Sean Bean. Sean Bean dies probably because he always dies.
Mila Kunis. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's who. And that one, it's. Have you ever read fan fiction about another property where the author is very clearly inserting themselves so they can romance all of these characters? Because that's the whole vibe Jupiter Ascending has. It's like one normal, mediocre girl is suddenly the princess of the galaxy.
They also wrote the screenplay for V for Vendetta, although they didn't direct it. So that was as far as scripts go, that's a good movie.
I love that one too.
Oh, I love it too. I would love to see their take on directing it. Honestly.
Oh man, it would have been such a.
It would have been so long. It would have been so long.
It would have been 2 movies.
We're everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's actually based on comics.
And then I remember this picture of the Gadsden mask being mass produced in a factory ended up going viral because it's there's just the sheer irony of it. Just rows and rows of them in some factory line.
It's like the Wachowskis can't get away from these movies that become like these commercial. I mean, it's just maybe just the kind of movies that they've made.
That's what commodification is,
Mm-hmm.
It's something to be said for the Matt Boers comic, and yet you participate in society.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you should use the tools available to you to push back and to fight back. I think that's
absolutely.
we're a part of this society. Like just kind of not doing anything. It certainly isn't a solution. And not everybody can go out and light a bank on fire and get shot by the police. So it's like you have to you got to work with what you have,
Exactly. A lot of people really this message usually comes with some pushback from people, but like just having joy in this capitalist society is itself a revolutionary act. Self-care is a revolutionary act. Remembering to drink water is a revolutionary act. So you don't have to be out there with the bombs. You can be pickling food for your friends or growing food or helping them clean their house. Revolutionary action doesn't have to be, Molotovs and here I come. It could be helping your neighbors.
Yes. I survive almost purely off of spite and defiance.
Same.
Is there any other way?
And my loved ones. Spite and defiance and my loved ones.
Oh, of course. In that order: spite, defiance, loved ones.
What was I going to say? Oh, so we don't. They don't need to know any of that. But I guess before we close, I know Joman, you have, or Joey, whoever you prefer to be referred to. I know I'll put some links to both of your work and whatnot. But I don't know if you want to tell people, where they can find you, what you do. I know you've mentioned a couple of the songs you've done in here. So
if you search me up, you can find me on pretty much everything. JOMAN. I should come right up.
Yep.
If not, it's at Joman Music. With the exception of TikTok, which is at I am Joman.
You're on TikTok. I gotta add you now.
I am on TikTok as well, or Joman or Joman, or however you want to pronounce it. I really have no preference.
Well, I'm going to pronounce it the way you say to pronounce it. Yes.
When I was a teenager, it was Joman.
Joman, it is.
And all my friends, it was Joman. It was always like, Joman. Literally since I was 13 years old, that's been my nickname. It's just why get rid of it? Everybody can find me. And so I've kind of got it's mine now. So
heck yeah, you have a unique and recognizable name. In terms of capitalist success, you are doing better than 90% of their artists.
Yeah. Except I got the Macklemore thing going. You drove me today, bitch.
Okay, well, that's how you got it. That's how you should be, man. You should always be ready.
Work well with the overlord.
Same. I've lost so many jobs just arguing with managers.
I
have missed some amazing opportunities because I was not willing to do some of these fucking bits. So,
No, they couldn't have been that amazing if they required that much submission.
Yep. Yeah.
I was going to say, Sarah, we did an episode on hackers, and what does the guy say? I don't work well with others.
Yeah,
the
I don't
villain
work
in that
well
movie.
with others.
I'm working on it. I'm working on working well enough with others to work with the ones that I want to work with.
Felt. I'm so used to being isolated and doing stuff on my own that it is hard to be in a group and complete things.
Learning the value of quality over quantity.
Heck yes.
Yeah.
That is an important lesson for all of us, especially us Americans.
Yep. Already grown up in this shit.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like a lot of people alive nowadays really missed out on the less is more thing from the late 80s, early 90s, because that really is like, I still think like, yeah, I would rather have a smaller dope soda than this.
We're the last people that are going to know what the world was like before social media.
Yeah.
It?
It really is. It really is to think that I've been on 2 or 3 different internets since I've been born.
I talked to somebody the other day and I told them, like they were telling me something. I was like, that's not accurate. That information wasn't available. Social media did not exist at that time. And it occurred to me when I said that that was probably new information to that person. And I was like, damn, I feel old now. That's so weird.
Yeah, you used to have to like go to a library and like look up a book, and you're like, I'll be right back.
Yeah, exactly. And like when one of your elders told you something, it was just misinformation, and that misinformation was just carried on for generations.
Yeah, you had no way to correct it, so you just sort of had to live with the idea that black people had a bone in their foot that let them win sporting events. That is a thing that was told to me by a terrible adult, by the way. I don't really want to perpetuate it, but it's like the silliest thing that I had to live with in my life for any period of time.
I believe most of my adult life that Robert R. Broccoli invented broccoli. Or it's the descendants of someone who they were the descendants of someone who had broccoli.
Somebody invented broccoli.
That's not even broccoli family. That's where the name came from.
Oh, I
Believed it until one day somebody was like, I'm like, it didn't even occur to me to Google that at any point. And so then I searched it up. Of course, it's bullshit. I'm like, no. What would we do without this thing that is simultaneously ruining our lives? The existential crisis rectangle.
So it's like we've come full circle to the moment of we have the greatest tool in our hands that both is a great tool for good, and then we have the AI and everything that's going to come along will be the greatest tool of evil.
If you have mine that you can throw in there is the existential crisis. I'll send you that and the Peaky Blinders and the Barbie one.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to throw them in there. Is not a problem. But yeah, Joman and Serra, it's been a pleasure to have you here to talk The Matrix and then some other depressing topics for all you people.
The Matrix, sort of.
Been fine. Thank you for letting me rant and rave.
Absolutely, I'm always down to listen to another comrade rant.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think it's one of those things where these movies have been, they're out there so much that it's. I think those conversations do fit in the way they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, and anyone listening, you can obviously subscribe to wherever you're listening right now, and we'll catch you next time.